Why Fiancé accidentally sent me a voice memo that was meant for his sister, and what I overheard him say about me was so cruel and shocking. I packed my bags and walked out the very next morning without looking back. I, a 29-year-old woman, ended my 3-year relationship with my 32-year-old fiancé last week. The catalyst was a voice message he inadvertently sent to me, which was intended for his sister. Currently, I'm writing this from the spare room at my best friend's place, surrounded by hastily packed bags, trying to comprehend how my entire world unraveled in just 24 hours. Ethan and I crossed paths through mutual acquaintances at a housewarming gathering. He was captivating, insightful, and we instantly connected over our shared enthusiasm for hiking and independent cinema. Our relationship blossomed rapidly. We moved in together after a year and became engaged on our 2nd anniversary. The wedding was scheduled for next spring. We had already secured the venue, sent out save the dates, and selected our bridal party. I was planning to go dress shopping with my mother the following weekend. There were no warning signs, at least none that I perceived. We had our disagreements as any couple does, but nothing significant. He got along well with my family, and I with his, particularly his younger sister Megan, whom I genuinely considered a dear friend. We discussed having children, purchased furniture jointly, and made plans for future vacations. Everything appeared flawless. Last Wednesday evening, I was working late at the hospital as a pediatric nurse. Ethan messaged me, saying he was having dinner with Megan to discuss some wedding details. I gave it no further thought. They are close, and Megan was my maid of honor. After my shift, I was utterly exhausted and drifted off to sleep almost immediately upon arriving home around midnight. Ethan wasn't back yet, but that wasn't unusual when he was out with friends or relatives. The next morning, I awoke to my phone vibrating with a notification. Ethan had sent me a voice memo at 1:23 a.m. I assumed he had recorded a sweet goodnight message when he returned home and found me asleep. He would do that sometimes, small audio notes expressing his affection or recalling an inside joke. I smiled as I pressed play, still hazy from sleep. What I heard transformed everything. "Hey Meg, just driving home now. Gosh, dinner was precisely what I needed. I've been feeling so constrained lately. Sarah's just, I don't know. Not who I imagined she was when we began dating." My heart seized. He continued, his voice slightly indistinct. He had clearly been drinking. "The closer we get to the wedding, the more I realize I'm simply settling. She's alright, dependable. She'll be a good mother. But there's no thrill anymore. Nothing like what I experienced with Kristen." Kristen, his former girlfriend from before we met, the one he insisted was ancient history. Sometimes I wonder if I proposed because it seemed like the logical next step, not because I'm madly in love. Don't misunderstand, I care for her, but marriage forever? I don't know, Meg. When I see you and Daniel together, that spark you two share, even after 5 years, Sarah and I don't have that. Perhaps we never did. I just feign it most of the time. I felt as though I was submerged underwater, sounds muffled, my vision blurring with tears. But what am I supposed to do now? Everything's arranged. Everyone is anticipating it. Mom and Dad adore her. Your children love her. It would devastate her if I withdrew. And then what? Start over at 32? Perhaps this is as good as it gets. Maybe the issue is me expecting some fairy tale. Anyway, I'm almost home. Don't mention any of this to Daniel. Love you, sis. The memo concluded. I sat motionless in bed, my phone clutched in my trembling hand. I replayed it, hoping I had misheard, hoping this was some cruel jest. But there was no mistaking his voice, his statements, the unmistakable disappointment he felt about spending his life with me. I was merely alright, dependable, someone he was settling for. I checked my phone again and saw a text from Ethan, sent a minute after the voice memo. Wrong person. Ignore that. It was meant for Megan. I'm exhausted and mixed up the contacts. Then another text. Sarah, are you awake? Please call me. And another. Darling, I am so sorry. I was intoxicated and just venting. None of that was genuine. Please call me before you listen to it. But it was too late. I had already absorbed every word. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely grasp my phone. My throat felt constricted, as if I might choke on the rising sense of betrayal. 3 years of memories flashed through my mind. All those instances I believed we were blissfully in love. All those times he gazed into my eyes and pledged forever. Had he been pretending even then? I slid out of bed and moved towards the bathroom on unsteady legs. The woman reflected in the mirror appeared unfamiliar. A pale face, red-rimmed eyes, a bewildered expression that seemed to inquire, how did I not know? I splashed cold water on my face, attempting to shock myself into some form of clarity, but my thoughts remained a chaotic maelstrom of hurt and bewilderment. I heard his key in the downstairs door. My heart rate instantly doubled. I couldn't face him, not yet. Not when I felt as though my chest had been torn open and everything inside scooped out. I locked the bedroom door, silenced my phone, and wept quietly as he knocked, calling my name with increasing desperation. Sarah, please. It wasn't what it sounded like. Please open the door. Let me explain. Explain what? That he didn't love me? That I was his contingency plan? His safety net? Good enough? I was drunk, darling. I didn't mean any of it. Please talk to me. His voice faltered on the last word, and for a moment I almost yielded. Almost. But then I remembered. I just feign it most of the time. How could I ever look at him again without wondering if he was feigning it? How could I ever trust a single "I love you" after knowing he had been comparing me to Kristen all this time? Sarah, I'm going to sleep on the couch. We can talk in the morning when you've had time to process. I love you. I'm so sorry. I heard his footsteps recede down the hallway, followed by the soft thud of his body settling onto our living room sofa. Eventually, his breathing settled into sleep while I remained awake, gazing at the ceiling, replaying his words repeatedly. I must have eventually drifted off, because I awoke to sunlight streaming through the curtains. For one blissful second, everything felt normal. Then the memory of the voice memo came crashing back, and the pain felt as raw as before. I could hear Ethan stirring downstairs, the coffee maker running, cabinet doors opening and closing. He was waiting for me to come down, prepared with his explanations and justifications. But what could he possibly say to nullify what I had heard? How could any explanation make it acceptable that he viewed our relationship as settling for, as good as it gets, rather than the love story I believed we were living? I waited until he departed for work the next morning. Then I gathered what I could carry, contacted my best friend Emma to inquire about staying with her, and walked out the door. I left my engagement ring on the kitchen counter with a note that simply stated, I deserve someone who doesn't have to pretend most of the time. Goodbye, Ethan. It has been 3 days since I left Ethan's house, and my entire reality has fragmented into a before and after. Before, I was planning my wedding to a man I believed loved me completely. After, I am sleeping on my best friend's pull-out sofa, ignoring countless messages and calls, and attempting to discover who I am outside of the relationship I thought would define my future. The first day, Ethan called incessantly. His messages began with desperation, then turned to anger, then pleaded once more. Please come home. We need to discuss this. You're overreacting. It was just drunken talk. Guys say foolish things all the time. This isn't fair. You won't even let me explain. I love you. I've always loved you. Please don't discard everything we've built over one mistake. But it wasn't merely one mistake, was it? It was a glimpse into his genuine sentiments. Feelings he shared with his sister but never with me. How many dinners had they had where I was the subject of conversation? How many times had he lamented settling for me? Emma has been my unwavering support throughout all of this. When I appeared at her door with swollen eyes and 2 hastily packed bags, she asked no questions, simply enveloped me in a fierce embrace and whispered, whatever it is, we'll navigate it together. Later, after I had played her the voice memo, she held my hand across her kitchen table and articulated what I couldn't yet concede to myself. This is a hidden blessing, Sarah. Better to know now than 5 years and 2 children into a marriage. I've been trying to process everything in waves. One moment I'm enraged. How dare he deprive me of the future I believed we were constructing together? The next, I'm heartbroken, grieving the loss of the man I thought I knew. Occasionally, treacherously, I wonder if I'm overreacting. Perhaps it truly was just drunken nonsense. Perhaps everyone experiences moments of doubt before getting married. But then I recall his casual tone, the way he sounded more resigned than conflicted. She's all right, you know, dependable. As if I were a practical vehicle choice, not the love of his life. And the comparison to Kristen cuts the deepest of all. For 3 years, whenever she came up in conversation, he dismissed their relationship as intense but immature. Now I know he has been measuring me against her all along and finding me wanting. My phone vibrated again yesterday afternoon. Megan this time. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity prevailed. Sarah, please talk to me. Ethan is a mess. He made a terrible error. The error was sending the memo to me instead of you, I replied. Not how he genuinely feels. It's not that simple, she wrote back. He was stressed and drunk and just spiraling. He doesn't mean any of it. Did you know all this time? Did you know he felt this way about me? There was a long pause before her response came through. He's never spoken like that before. I was shocked too. I think he's just panicking about the wedding. I wanted to believe her. Part of me still does. But then I remember his voice, so casual, so candid. I just feign it most of the time. How can you recover from hearing something like that? Last night, I finally telephoned my mother. I had been avoiding it, knowing that once I confided in her, this would all become more tangible, more conclusive. She listened quietly as I explained, interrupted only by occasional shocked gasps. When I finished, the silence stretched between us for so long I thought we had been disconnected. "Mom, are you still there?" "I'm here, dear," she finally said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm just absorbing it. I always thought Ethan was one of the good ones." "So did I," I whispered, tears beginning again. "What do you require right now? Do you wish to come home for a while?" Home? My childhood bedroom with its faded posters and twin bed. The idea was appealing, to retreat to a time before adult heartbreak, before I bound my future to someone who viewed me as merely adequate. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "I need to sort some things out first. Whatever you decide, I support you. And Sarah, this does not reflect on you. This is about him, not you. But is it? That's the question keeping me awake at night. Was there something I overlooked, some indication that Ethan was unhappy? Did I disregard warning signs because I was so enamored with the vision of our life together? I've been replaying our entire relationship in my mind, searching for moments where the facade slipped, where his pretense might have been evident if I had been more attentive. Our intimate life had diminished somewhat over the past year. Was that because he was no longer attracted to me? He had been working late more frequently. Was he avoiding returning home to me? Last month, when I suggested we begin trying for a baby after the wedding, he had seemed hesitant. Was that because he didn't wish to be bound to me indefinitely? Or am I simply tormenting myself, reinterpreting our history through the lens of his betrayal? This morning, Ethan appeared at Emma's door with coffee and my favorite pastries from the local bakery. Emma intercepted him on the porch. "She's not ready to see you," I overheard her say through the window. "I just need 5 minutes," he pleaded. "I need to explain." "Explain what precisely?" Emma's voice was frigid. "We heard the recording, Ethan. We all did. It wasn't real," he insisted. "I was drunk and talking. Guys do that. It doesn't mean anything." "If it didn't mean anything, why say it at all to your sister of all people?" He had no response to that. After he left, Emma came inside, sat beside me on the couch and took my hand. "What do you want to do about the wedding?" she inquired gently. "The wedding? Goodness, I hadn't even considered the practical aspects of all this. The deposits we would forfeit. The guests we would need to inform. The dress I would never wear. I suppose I have to cancel everything," I said, the reality of it landing like a physical blow. "You don't have to do anything today," Emma reassured me. "And you don't have to do it alone." She's correct, of course. But there's a part of me that can't help feeling as though I'm living in some cruel alternative reality. A week ago, I was excitedly comparing bridesmaid dress swatches and finalizing our honeymoon plans. Now I'm seeking refuge at my friend's apartment, attempting to unravel 3 years of shared life, shared friends, shared aspirations. Do I contend for us? Could we recover from this? Or would I spend the remainder of my life wondering if he's feigning it every time he tells me he loves me? Tonight, I finally reactivated my phone and messaged Ethan. "I require time to reflect. Please respect that and grant me space. I'll reach out when I'm prepared to converse." His reply was immediate. "I love you. I'll wait as long as it takes." But the words that once would have comforted me now resonate as hollow, because I know what he says when he believes I'm not listening, and I can never unhear it. Update. 2 weeks later. It's peculiar how life can simultaneously progress both too swiftly and too slowly after a significant upheaval. These past 2 weeks have been a blur of establishing routines in my new apartment, dedicating myself to work, and attempting to rediscover who Sarah is when she's not defined by her relationship with Ethan. Yesterday, I finally consented to meet him. Not because I had forgiven him, but because I needed closure. We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown where neither of us were regulars. I arrived first, deliberately choosing a table in the corner with clear sightlines to the exit, an escape route just in case. When Ethan entered, my heart gave a traitorous lurch in my chest. He looked dreadful, unshaven, dark circles beneath his eyes, clothes wrinkled as if he had slept in them. For a moment I felt a flicker of empathy. Then I remembered his words. "I just feign it most of the time." He sat opposite me, his hands clasped around his coffee cup as if seeking warmth. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. "Thank you for meeting me," he finally said. I nodded, not yet trusting myself to speak. "Sarah, what you overheard, it wasn't real. I was drunk and stressed and just venting to Megan." Everyone does that sometimes. Venting about traffic is normal, Ethan. Venting about your job is normal. Telling your sister that you're settling for your fiancé, that you're just marrying me because I'll be a good mother? That's not normal. He recoiled. I didn't mean any of it. Then why say it at all? Drunken words are sober thoughts. Isn't that what they say? It's not that simple, he insisted, leaning forward. I love you. I've always loved you. But you're not in love with me, I said quietly. There's a distinction. That's not true. Isn't it? You compared us to your sister and her husband said, we don't have that spark. Said, you're basically settling because starting over seems too difficult. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it pained me to observe. I was having a moment of cold feet. Everyone does before getting married. It doesn't mean I don't want to marry you. But should you? Should I marry someone who has to convince himself that this is as good as it gets? The question lingered between us, heavy with implication. Ethan looked down at the table. I'm sorry, he whispered. I never intended to hurt you. But you did, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. And worse than the hurt is knowing I would never have discovered it if you hadn't accidentally sent me that memo. We would have married, had children, built a life, all while you were secretly feeling trapped. It wouldn't have been like that, he insisted. How do you know? You said yourself that you've been feeling this way for a while. That I'm not who you thought I was. What does that even signify, Ethan? When did I change? Or did you just stop perceiving me clearly? He couldn't provide an answer. He simply kept reiterating his apologies, that he would do anything to rectify this, that we could attend couples therapy, postpone the wedding, whatever I required. But what I truly needed was candor. So I posed the question that had been tormenting me. Do you still think about Kristen? His hesitation was sufficient reply. I don't compare you to her, he said finally. That's not fair. But you did. In the memo, you said we don't have what you had with her. It was different with her. Not better, just different. Different how? He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. More volatile, I suppose. Higher highs, lower lows. With you everything is stable. Dependable. There was that word again. Dependable. As if I were a Toyota Camry, reliable but unexciting. I appreciate that stability, he quickly added, noticing my expression. It's good. It's what I desire long term. But it wasn't what he envisioned, was it? I was the sensible option, the secure choice, the woman he was settling for because starting over seemed too arduous. I felt something shift within me. Then a final thread severing, the last vestige of hope dissolving. I think we're finished here, I said, rising. Sarah, please. No, Ethan. I deserve better than this. I deserve someone who is eager to marry me, not someone who has to talk himself into it. As I exited the coffee shop, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. The pain was still present, but something else was burgeoning alongside it. A sense of self-worth I hadn't realized I had been compromising. When I returned to Emma's, I discovered a large envelope awaiting me. Inside was a letter from Megan. My heart pounded as I opened it, bracing for more justifications of her brother, more attempts to minimize his words. Instead, I found an apology. Sarah, I am so sorry. What Ethan said was inexcusable, and I should have challenged him on it that night instead of merely listening. The truth is, he's been grappling with commitment anxiety ever since our parents' messy divorce last year. That doesn't excuse what he said about you. But I thought you should know there's context I didn't share with you. Their parents' divorce? Ethan had mentioned they were separating, but he dismissed it as amicable and long overdue. He never indicated it was profoundly affecting him. Another detail he had withheld from me while confiding in his sister. The letter continued. I also want you to know that in the 3 years you've been together, that dinner was the only time he ever expressed doubts. Usually he talks about how fortunate he is to have found you. I think he got frightened and convinced himself he was somehow repeating our parents' mistakes. Again, not an excuse, just context. I folded the letter carefully and returned it to the envelope. It didn't alter anything, not truly, but it helped me comprehend that Ethan's issues were not a reflection of my value. They were his own struggles to confront. Today, I signed a lease on a compact apartment near the hospital. It's small, and the kitchen requires renovation, but it's mine. A new beginning. I've also commenced the arduous process of canceling wedding arrangements. Each phone call feels like removing another bandage, but also like reclaiming fragments of myself. My dress appointment was canceled, the venue deposit forfeited, the flowers redirected to a local nursing home. This isn't the conclusion I envisioned for us, but perhaps it's the fresh start I needed for myself. Update. 3 months later, it's curious how life can simultaneously progress both too rapidly and too sluggishly after a major upheaval. These past 3 months have been a whirlwind of establishing routines in my new apartment, immersing myself in work, and endeavoring to rediscover who Sarah is when she's not defined by her connection with Ethan. I received a promotion at the hospital last month, pediatric nursing coordinator, a position I had been aspiring to for years, but somehow always found justifications to postpone pursuing. The wedding planning consumed so much time, I told myself. We might start trying for a baby soon after. It's humbling to realize how much I had unconsciously restricted my own ambitions to accommodate a future that was never as stable as I believed. The initial month in my apartment was the most challenging. I would awaken, reaching for Ethan, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings. The silence was deafening after years of shared living space. No other breathing, no coffee maker running downstairs, no gentle disagreements about whose turn it was to walk the dog. Ethan kept Bruno, our golden retriever. It made sense. The house has a yard and I work longer hours. But I miss that dog almost as much as I miss Ethan some days. Speaking of Ethan, we've established a fragile sort of tranquility. After one final 4-hour conversation where we both articulated things that had needed to be said for years, we agreed to a complete separation. No friendship, no casual check-ins, no social media connections. It was too painful, too fraught with what-ifs and might-have-beens. In another life we could have been happy, he said as we parted. I truly do love you, Sarah. I know, I replied. Just not enough or not in the right way. He didn't dispute it, which conveyed everything. Megan reached out a few weeks after that, inquiring if we could still be friends despite everything. I appreciated the sentiment, but it felt unfeasible. She would always be his sister first, and every conversation would be a minefield of avoided subjects. Some relationships are collateral damage in breakups, and this was one of them. My mother visits every other weekend, bringing home-cooked meals and assisting me in gradually transforming the apartment into a home. She never says, "I told you so," even though she had expressed gentle concerns about how quickly Ethan and I moved in together, how young we were when we became engaged. Instead, she helps me hang artwork and suggests paint colors and reminds me that heartbreak, like everything else, is temporary. Last week, I encountered Kristen, Ethan's ex, the one he compared me to in that fateful voice memo. It was at a local brewery where my nursing school friends and I were celebrating a colleague's birthday. I recognized her immediately from old photographs Ethan had never quite gotten around to deleting from his Facebook. She was with a group of women, laughing loudly, her hair shorter than in the pictures, but her smile just as radiant. For a moment I contemplated leaving. Then curiosity prevailed, and I approached her as she stood alone at the bar, awaiting drinks. "This is going to sound peculiar," I said, "but I'm Sarah. I was engaged to Ethan Walker." Her eyes widened in recognition. "Oh my goodness, Sarah. I've heard so much about you." Then realizing how that sounded. "All good things, I promise." An awkward silence descended between us. I wasn't certain what I had anticipated from this encounter: validation that she was somehow inferior to me, confirmation that she was indeed the exciting, passionate alternative to my steady reliability. Instead, I found myself facing just another woman, one who had her own history with a man who had broken my heart. "I just wanted to say hello," I said lamely. "This is strange. I shouldn't have." "No, it's fine," she said quickly. "Actually, can I buy you a drink? I feel like we might have some interesting conversations." And so we did. For 2 hours, Kristen and I sat in a corner booth and exchanged observations about the man we both loved. She recounted their tumultuous relationship, how passionate but unstable it had been, how they had separated and reconciled 6 times in 3 years. "He was always searching for something," she said, nursing her beer. "Some perfect relationship that doesn't exist. With us, it was all drama and makeup, sex and grand gestures. When it was good, it was incredible. When it was bad, well, it was a nightmare. With us, it was stable," I said. "Dependable." I couldn't suppress the bitter edge from my voice. She looked at me thoughtfully. "You know, he used to speak about that with such admiration, how you were his anchor, how he'd never felt so secure with anyone, until he didn't want security anymore. Or until he convinced himself he didn't." She countered. "Ethan has his challenges, Sarah. His parents' marriage was a disaster, and he grew up believing relationships had to be full of passion and conflict to be genuine. Then he found something healthy and stable with you, and a part of him couldn't trust it, couldn't believe it would endure." It was peculiar receiving this insight from someone who had once been my subconscious rival. Stranger still to realize that what I perceived as my inadequacy, my steadiness, my reliability, had initially been what attracted Ethan to me. For what it's worth, Kristen said as we parted ways, I think he made a colossal error. And someday he'll recognize it. Tonight, as I compose this from my small balcony, watching the sunset paint the city golden, I'm struck by how differently I perceive that voice memo now. 3 months ago, it was a devastating betrayal, proof that I wasn't enough. Now I see it for what it was. A moment of weakness from a man struggling with his own internal conflicts, his own inability to appreciate the value of what he possessed. I still experience difficult days when I miss our effortless companionship, our shared humor, the future we had envisioned together. Days when I pass by bridal shops and feel a pang of what might have been. But those days are becoming fewer, the pain less acute. If I could return to that morning when I first heard Ethan's voice uttering those dreadful things about me, I wouldn't alter my response. Walking away was the correct decision. Not because Ethan is a bad person, but because we both deserve more than a marriage founded on compromise and secret uncertainties. I don't know what unfolds next in my narrative. For the first time in years, my future isn't meticulously planned out in joint decisions and concessions. It's solely mine. Both frightening and exhilarating in equal measure. But I do know this. I am more than merely dependable, more than someone's contingency plan or secure option. I am intricate, loving, ambitious, and deserving of someone who never has to question whether choosing me was settling. And for now, that realization is sufficient to propel me forward, one day at a time, into whatever lies ahead.